Hi, I'm Bree.
And I'm Amy.
Welcome to Flip&C's Deep Canvassing video.
First, we wanted to define what we mean by deep canvassing, because you might have heard the phrase before, but it can mean different things in different contexts.
Sometimes it's used to describe a kind of canvassing where you're trying to change someone's mind about a particular issue.
But in this case, we're targeting folks who are already left-leaning. They might not be voting, they might not be voting the full ticket, or they might be voting pretty consistently, but they're good targets to get to talk with their friends and neighbors about the importance of voting.
So our goal isn't to change someone's mind about something. It's really just about making connections and having authentic conversations. And
you really want to get people talking and then listen to what they have to say.
And we want to connect the issues that people care about to their elected officials.
So this kind of canvassing is really powerful because it's not primarily about asking somebody to go out and vote for a particular candidate. It's about asking what they care about and then connecting that to their elected officials.
And it's also just a great tangible sign that people in their community care what they think.
And then compared with more traditional get out the vote canvassing, this style of canvassing that's more conversational is much more effective with the sporadic left-leaning voters that we really need to get to the polls in 2020.
So depending on what organization you're canvassing with, whether it's Flip&C or someone else, the script that you use might vary. And script isn't really my favorite word to describe what we're talking about. I like to use the phrase a rap instead of a script, because that implies that it's not word for word, it's not something you're reading from or you have to memorize. It's just kind of a guide to a conversation, and you can make it your own, use your own language, and really have an authentic conversation.
So first, some tips. When you knock on the door, you knock and then you want to step way back from the door. If there's a porch, ideally off the porch. You want to get folks to come out and talk with you, because if they're just opening the door a crack, you're not going to have a good conversation with them.
Also, don't ask if they have time to talk. It's way too easy for them to say no and close the door. Just launch right in, and most folks will stay and listen.
And if you see a no soliciting sign, you can still knock there. What we're doing is not soliciting, we're just having conversations with voters. And
some folks like to say up front that they're not selling anything, they're not asking for money, they're just volunteers out talking with their neighbors.
On the other hand, if you see a no trespassing sign, we want to skip those doors. That's a really strong signal that somebody does not want to be bothered and you're not going to have a good conversation.
Along that line, it's just a good idea to use your spidey sense. If something about a house feels off and you just don't want to knock on that door, you can absolutely skip a door. If someone has a Hillary for Prison bumper sticker, or just anything makes you feel like maybe you don't want to knock on that door, then just listen to that feeling.
And keep in mind that we're targeting left-leaning voters, but we might not always get the person we're trying to reach.
And it's up to you whether you talk to the person who answers the door or ask for the person on your list. Just kind of feel it out and do what makes sense for you.
But if someone clearly doesn't share our values, they're not the type of target that we're trying to get to the polls, you can just thank them for their time and ask them to have a nice day. We just always want to be polite, but you don't have to continue the conversation.
Yeah, don't worry, there's plenty of left-leaning voters out there to talk to.
And if no one answers, leave an information sheet behind for them. Just leaving this information behind for left-leaning voters actually helps get the most sporadic voters to the polls. Just remember not to leave it in the mailbox, because that's not legal, so just roll it up, stick it next to the door.
Just a couple other tips. One of the most important things is to make sure that you practice your rap before you go out to your first door. If you get the script ahead of time, say it with a friend, say it with your partner or your mom, and practice using the words, and it'll really make a big difference in being able to have an authentic conversation, so it doesn't sound like you're just reciting a script.
And each element of the script was designed to convey or collect certain key pieces of information. So we really want to try to hit all of those elements, but you don't need to go in the same order. We really want to have an authentic conversation. So the key to being able to have an authentic conversation while hitting those elements is to practice before you go out.
So let's just go over some of the key elements of a rap that you're likely to have in most any canvassing script that you might have.
So first, you want to introduce yourself, identify yourself as a volunteer, say what organization you're with and why you're there.
Your script might include this, but it's really a good idea to spend a few minutes saying why you personally are there canvassing, why you're out there talking to voters. Sharing that with people who answer the door lets them know that you're genuine and that you're there because you care.
And then next, provide a little bit of background to folks on the focus of your canvass. So for Flip, we talk about the North Carolina General Assembly. So we might talk about what's been going on, new laws that have passed or failed.
Then you want to ask folks to share their thoughts with you. the conversation is going to be much more memorable for them, if they actually are asked their thoughts, and then you really want to listen and ask pertinent follow-up questions.
And again, the most important thing is to get them talking. You really want to make sure that they are talking more than you are.
One tip to do that is to think of a few different ways to ask that initial question to get them talking. Sometimes when you first go to the door, people aren't expecting that someone's going to come and ask them their thoughts on this thing today, and they might say, I don't know. So if you have a couple of different ways of asking the question up front, then you can ask follow-ups, and that usually gives them a chance to think about it and get some talking.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, it's much easier than you might expect. People do really like to talk about themselves and what they think about things, and so once you get them going, the conversation will just flow naturally from there.
And then after you've had a conversation, you want to think about solutions to the issues that have come up that you've raised.
So for example, if folks are talking about, if they say healthcare is the most important thing to them, we might want to talk about electing representatives who will fight to make sure everyone has access to healthcare, ask them to sign a pledge to vote in 2020, or let them know they live in a competitive district, and ask if you can follow up with them closer to the election.
And then you always want to ask folks a good way to contact them again down the road. If you have a mailing list for your organization, ask them if you can add them to the mailing list and find out whether they prefer phone calls or emails or text messages, and make sure that their phone numbers and emails are updated in the voter file.
And lastly, always thank someone for their time, ask them to have a nice day, and then when you walk away, make sure that you record any relevant information and answers to questions in the van.
That's it. Good luck.